Alright, so we back with another video. I edited and uploaded this twice already. This is my third time making this. Now, we are making this at 5:55 on December 3rd, so that you don't get it confused. Because there's so many games going on. I made this after the Chelsea-Barcelona game. Then I had to remake it because of the Chelsea-Arsenal game. And now I'm having to remake it again because it's been a lot of games that happened in the last 2 days. So, it's been a real weird week. But today we're going to be giving y'all the top 10 football clubs in the world. Y'all do want more videos like this, make sure to like the video. Hopefully you like the video. Subscribe if you're new. No more talking. Let's hop into it. Now, I feel like when a lot of people make videos like this, it's either a lot of bias involved and they have a lot of other opinions to like combat the opinions. But when you're doing it by yourself, you got to try to get this as perfect as possible. Now, I'm also doing a top 10 players list. I think that one's going to be a lot easier because players is like, it's not as much fluctuation. It's not as many overreactions. Like performances is performances. If your team losing, that's a team thing. That's a different thing. Now, if your team's winning a lot because of you, then that's also going to factor into it. But if you're doing all you can in these games and you still losing, I can't fault you for it. But when it comes to team performances, this is what we're going to be doing today. Now, first things first, we got the honorable mentions. First honorable mention coming in at number 2 in the Bundesliga. Really tough team to really try to gauge because I don't know if the Bundesliga is good or not. Honestly, right now, you could argue Dortmund right now is on better form, but Leipzig, you gotta give them credit for how they started the season. I didn't give them a mention in the last one. I'm giving them a mention on this one. I think Leipzig definitely deserve at least a mention on this list. Now, the next time we do this, Dortmund probably be above them, but I want to at least give 2 teams in a lot of the top 5 leagues. I'm trying to think. I was finna say Portuguese league. I was finna troll. That's not a top 5 league, but yeah, I think they at least deserve an honorable mention. You could throw some other teams that actually had a pretty good last month, but I think Leipzig, honorable mention. Then, coming in at the next one is where I really start getting the list going. I think this is a team that you could debate to go to 10. I think all the other teams I might have an honorable mention could have a debate to go to 10, and I would say AC Milan. Now, the issue with AC Milan is, I think that, personally, Serie A is the most competitive league right now. I don't think that's too debatable. But in terms of the quality of the league, I don't think it's that high, personally right now. Now, we're going to talk about some other leagues that don't have a lot of quality. I think Bundesliga may also be one of those. But Serie A, I don't think there's even like a standout team this year in that league. When you think about teams like Inter, they lost their manager and they kind of fell off a cliff towards the end of this season because how old the age. Like after the Barcelona game, they just completely fell off a cliff. Like it's just what it was. They didn't win the league. They didn't win a single trophy. They just kind of got trolled. Like they were very good, one of the best teams in the league last year, but I feel like age kind of factored into them, and then a whole another year with a worse manager is not looking as good. They just can't really need big games. But if we go get into Inter. But AC Milan, on the other hand, they big game merchants right now. They haven't really... Now, I'm going to speak on draws in comparison to winning and not losing. But if it's literally coming down to the fact that teams are getting 4 losses, and then you have Milan with really just 1, and that's kind of the difference in the table right now. I think Como is also another team with only 1 loss, but they have 6 draws compared to 4, whereas AC Milan is replacing those 2 draws with wins. So Milan is one of the toughest teams to beat right now in Serie A in a very competitive league, and that could take them all the way to winning the league. As of right now, though, they're still tied with Napoli. I just couldn't put Napoli in good faith on this list with the way Napoli's been playing so far this year in the Champions League. So, you gotta respect Conte. I do think that they probably troll the Champions League and just take over Serie A and probably just go for Serie A, which is probably what Inter should do as well, because I don't see Inter going that far, even though they were undefeated until the Atletico game. But yeah. Next we have Martial. Now Martial, I do think underrated, quiet as kept. League 1 has been very competitive this year compared to last year. Now, I do think a lot of that has to do with the top team, which we're going to talk about later on into this video, obviously. But Martial is my next honorable mention. They're around actually where Barcelona is in the league. I think Barcelona has had a pretty tough schedule. But for a team like Martial, they've had a really tough schedule. And for them to be around there, if they can make it into the playoff, that could be a very interesting thing for them, to be real. But they're number 1 in League 1 right now. Let me say it again. Martial is number 1 in League 1. Over that team that you're probably thinking of. I think it was Lyon, But after that team of the year, think about, just lost to Monaco. It is a little bit overrated what they've been doing in the league and in Champions League. So I'm going to say Martial is honorable mention for me. And then last but not least on the honorable mention, I think this is the one that has the biggest shout to being higher on the list, Inter. Inter, I think that before this game against Atletico, clear top 10, but losing to Atletico, not being that great, like they've lost literally every big game they've had this year when it comes to the big Serie A teams, when it comes to in the Champions League, they finally play a kind of a big game. They even lose that. So it's kind of tough to really put Inter, and I actually like Inter a lot, but I just can't be biased on it and try to put them too high. But I do think right now, Serie A is probably the most competitive league, but in terms of entertaining, probably not. In terms of quality, probably not. But you got to give them that competitive, how hard it is to win that league right now, in terms of how tight it is, the race, you got to give them credit. Now, getting out the honorable mentions, we're now getting into the real deal list. Hopping into it, coming in at number 10, we're going into the Premier League. Now, the Premier League, I would say, is on the other end of the spectrum in terms of competitiveness after today. I don't think it's that competitive right now. If you look at the last two games from the two teams that you would think are going to be fighting for the title, but this is the team that's low-key quiet as kept fighting for the title right with them, and in Europe, by the way. They're in Europe. And if we're talking about the last month, out of all the teams in the Premier League, this probably has been the best month out of any of these teams. Aston Villa. Aston Villa has arguably had the best team the best month since November 1st, I would say. But if we're saying from December 3rd to November 3rd, they have not lost a game. They have not tied a game. They have been all wins. By the way, in the league that, I'm going to mention this when I'm talking about the upper echelon teams, Arsenal, City, Chelsea even today, Liverpool. These teams are dropping games consistently, and even if they're not losing them, they're tying. For them to go on this streak of wins, especially with Europe, you got to give Aston Villa a lot of credit. Now, Aston Villa, I was a lot higher on them in the Premier League prediction table that I did coming into the season. I thought people was trying to put United above them. People was trying to put Spurs above them. I didn't really understand that when you look at how good Villa was last year. And then you think about all the stuff about maybe they have Europe this year, you know what I'm saying? It's not going to be Champions League. But you think about the teams also last year that played PSG the best. Aston Villa, they played them the best. That's not even, I don't think that's too debatable in my opinion. They were the scariest. I feel like that was the scariest in Champions League last year in terms of the rounds, the actual playoff round. Obviously, before January, PSG just weren't nearly as good. Once they kind of made that switch in terms of what they were doing with their formation and tactics, they were kind of unbeatable, and Aston Villa was like the scariest team that they had played. So I do think Aston Villa is a very underrated team in terms of the quality of players they have, in terms of the manager, in terms of the tactics, and in terms of performance, and the actual how they've been winning every game in arguably the hardest league in the world. So Aston Villa, I have at 10. You could argue should go higher based on what I said, but for now, because they did have a rocky start to the season, I'm gonna say 10. Then next, we have Atletico Madrid. Now, Atletico is a tough one. These next three, you could really put in any order. I don't think you can really put Atletico first, but I could see them being second. I could. It depends on if you put the team that I have in first, where you put them. But I'm gonna have to go Atletico here. I think Atletico and Aston Villa are very comparable. Very rocky start to the season. I think on the other hand, Atletico made a lot of changes in the offseason where a lot of people will be like making fun of Atletico, but the team that really don't make no change is Barcelona because they're broke. Atletico made a lot of changes in the offseason. They made a lot of changes. They probably made more changes than even Madrid. But did they spend as many? That's the difference. But they made a lot of changes and a lot of moves. And in this Barcelona game that we just seen, I think Barcelona was the better team for sure. But we're going to talk about more so why. Atletico, what they did to Madrid, they destroyed Madrid. And they could have been, first half, I think Madrid was up. They should have been down. The performances that Madrid have had in these big games have not been good. No matter how you want to look at it. You could really use even the last 2 years. But you got to give Madrid credit for the one game that they did win, even though we're going to give the context to it in this video. But Atletico, on the other hand, really since the beginning of the year, until this game against Barcelona, they were pretty much on a longer stretch of wins than Aston Villa in terms of being consistent. Now, the thing is, in Champions League, when they had the big games in Champions League, when they played Liverpool, that was a very good game. They came back in that game to tie it, and then that was around the time when Liverpool was actually tough to beat. Even Arsenal had lost to them at that point. So you cannot knock Atletico for losing to Liverpool at that time. Now, Aston Villa, on the other hand, lost to Liverpool in a time where they've been bad. So you can kind of gauge the two at that point. But I would say Atletico, that the losses to Liverpool, losses to Arsenal, now you have a loss to Barcelona. That's 3 pretty big losses. I don't think the other 2 teams I'm going to talk about from that league have as many big game losses, personally. So, yeah. Then coming in at number 8. Now, this is probably, if I'm going to be honest, if there's any bias on this list, it'd probably be this team, Barcelona. Now, I had to redo this list a couple times because this team, I don't know where to really place. Because as soon as they're getting healthier, they're getting injured. Now, I'm going to be honest, some of the injuries that they're starting to pick up are not the most significant injuries except for De Jong. But I will say this, brother. When they played PSG, people talked about all the PSG injuries. Barcelona was just as injured. When they played Madrid, in my opinion, played better in the first half. Second half, they just parked the bus to make sure they got the result. I don't think that was a drastically better performance, but I do think that's one of Madrid's better overall performances of the season. I do. And I do think that they outplayed them in that game. But Barcelona, again, you had Pedri, pretty much, he got injured in that game. I think people forget that. He got injured, so they try to do these little talks about how he played bad in that game, which I don't even think he played bad before the injury. I just think Bellingham outplayed him, which was a very rare occasion at this point. And a lot of it now we know was more so because of injury. Now, the big question with Barcelona in that game was Lamine. Lamine didn't have the greatest game, in my opinion. He was getting double team, triple team. He deals with that every game. But he just didn't have the greatest game. Now, let's be real. John Garcia at this point is a very important piece to this defense. When he plays, they give up a lot of goals. When he plays, they don't give up a lot of goals. When he plays, they give up a lot of goals. It's just what it is. Now, is it still a big issue with the high line? Yes. But it's just a better defensive team. It's just they kill counters a lot easier when he's there. He's just a lot better than everybody else they've had that play, especially, I guess it's really only been Chesney this year, but yeah. So, I do think this is a different team with him, and this is a completely different team if they have Rafinha. Now, the way I look at it when it comes to Barcelona, they have tone setters in terms of when they're off the ball, and they have the chance creators when they're on the ball. The tone setters when they're off the ball, Rafinha, Pedri. When they're on the ball, the creators, Pedri and Lamine. And there's no better example of how much better Pedri is than all these other midfielders than the game against Atletico. That game, I don't even think Lamine had a good game in that game. To be honest, I think people were saying he had a bad game against Madrid. He created a lot more chances in that game than he did against Atletico. People talked about the Chelsea game, but he was creating more chances in that game than he was against Atletico. The thing is, people, I guess they don't really watch Lamine that much, but Lamine is arguably the best player in the world. It's not really a debatable thing. Only way you really can argue against it is if you just a GA merchant, to be honest. You can't really look at the talent that he has and say otherwise. But the issue is with Barcelona, it kind of happened in the Ballon d'Or. They kind of are fighting amongst each other when it comes to Rafinha, Lamine, and Pedri. But the thing is, that only makes the team better in terms of having all three. When it comes to who's the individual best player, that's a different talk. But in terms of the team, as long as they have those 3 players healthy, they're going to be high. Now, the only reason why they're not high is because those 3 players haven't been healthy the whole year. Lamine has missed time, and even when he played, he wasn't match fit. Pedri has even missed a whole month at this point. Rafinha missed 2 months, and now they still getting even more injuries. Fermin Lopez is getting injured. Araujo is out with mental issues, but I'm going to be honest, I don't think that's a huge miss for them personally. What's his name? Olmo is missing, but again, that's probably another situation like Araujo, even though he did have a really good goal against Atletico. You got to give him credit. Lewandowski as well. By the way, Barcelona, it was a lot of bad performances from Barcelona players in that game. Kubarsi was not good in that game. Lewandowski was not good in that game. Danny Olmo outside the goal was bad in that game. But the thing is, bro, Pedri was that good. I don't even think Rafinha was pretty wasteful. I thought Lamine was pretty wasteful. I honestly thought Balde and John Garcia was probably the next two. Koundé actually had a pretty solid second half, especially when they took everybody off and he started like man marking. But for the most part, bro, the only reason that game was the way it was, Pedri, bro. Pedri, bro. He creates all the chances. He kills counters. He carries the ball. He gets you out of pressure. He helps you with build up. And this is another thing I want to say. When it came to Atletico, they had three big losses in my opinion. You got the Barcelona loss, you got the Liverpool loss, and you got the Arsenal loss. When it comes to Barcelona, when you look at the game against PSG, Pedri played in that game. But look at how PSG played him. I talked about this in the other video. And a lot of times they were man marking him and triple teaming him in the midfield. That's completely different than what Lamine is kind of dealing with on the outside. Now, I do think we've kind of seen Lamine start to move around. And I think as Lamine starts to play a little bit more central, that's when it's going to be... Like, people are talking about Lamine already in crazy convos. Well, once he start getting more central, I don't think he's going to be able to ever play like false nine like Messi. But if he gets into a 10 role or just even like a more inverted role on the wing instead of being so isolated, where he can actually have an impact more consistently, because there's a lot of times where he's just not able to get the ball a lot of situations because teams give him so much attention. So when he's so isolated on the wing, not only is he getting double team, triple team, now you have the touch line as a defender. So if you move him centrally where you got space, that's where it's going to be scary, because he's going to attract all that attention and it's going to be so many avenues for him to attack you from. That's kind of why Cole Palmer is so crazy, because I don't know if he's as technically gifted as Lamine, but in terms of decision making, how smart he is, passing ability, he's up there too. So I do think Lamine, if he moves centrally, we've seen some glimpses of it in the past 2 months. That could be very scary for the world. I'm gonna be real. But I will say, I do think that PSG game, I would say Nuno is arguably the best left back in the world, if not by far the best left back in the world. I honestly think Cucurella had the better performance defensively, but Nuno had the better overall performance because of what he could do going forward in terms of creating chances, being on the end of chances, and all that type of stuff. Cucurella can get on the end of chance, but even the chance that he kind of helped create, he was offsides, whether you want to argue it or not. And then even then, it was an own goal. Like I do feel like the Chelsea game is a little overblown in terms of how it was in the first half. I think they were creating chances, but they were kind of trolling chances as well with the offside trap. I think Barcelona did a pretty solid job with the offside trap. But that goal, they pretty much gave them a free goal. And then you got the red card, Araujo, that was just crazy. And then the second half, it was 10 men. I thought Chelsea, if they were playing better in the first half, they're going to play better in the second half. But I do think the bigger issue in the Chelsea game, a lot of people are not talking about it. This is Barcelona, brother. This is possession Barcelona. Tiki-taka Barcelona. They couldn't build up. Now, when I seen that happen to Arsenal, if you watch them play Bayern, they didn't even win possession battle. They didn't even try to play possession. They let Bayern have the possession. So that wasn't as big of a deal. They've done that before. When the Barcelona game was eye-opening because they tried to have possession. They tried to play possession. They literally couldn't. Now, De Jong ends up getting hurt in that game. That's going to impact them. I think that's an injury that's going to be pretty big for them. But we'll see. They still getting injured. That's the weird thing. Every person in their starting 11 has been injured already this year. And that's the thing about Barcelona that's tough to gauge when you think about their big game losses, when you think about Madrid. When you think about, oh, they low-key got 3 big game losses too, because they got Madrid, PSG, and Chelsea. Low-key, Atletico, I may be harsh. I don't think they got, I guess the Chelsea would be their Arsenal, and Arsenal is a better team than Chelsea. But I do think that the PSG and Madrid game are close. Those 2 games were close. It just, especially the PSG game. The PSG game was clearly a close game. Like, I think PSG was better, but you could argue that Barcelona was better in the first half. PSG was better in the second half for sure, though. So, I think the first half was debatable. Second half was PSG. I think they was more threatening. Now, I ain't gonna lie, though. That Madrid game, I think, was a lot closer than people act like, but I do think Madrid first half was better. But second half, they just played counter and just played park the bus and countered off that. Like, they just told you, you're not going to break it down, and then when you make a mistake, we're just going to take advantage of that with Vini. And, yeah. They just took their result. And then the Chelsea game, like I said, that was the eye-opener. I think the biggest loss they have isn't even a big game. It's Sevilla. But when you look at the people that was out in that game, I do think, like I said, I think the buildup of overplaying Pedri was a big issue in that Sevilla and Madrid game. So I don't want to go too crazy on those two games, personally. I do think that does matter. When you think about teams like these other teams, they can swap out players because they have a squad. Barcelona don't really have a full squad. It's just what it is. When you think about the injuries, especially with the situation, they don't. So for them to be doing as well as they are this season, you got to kind of give Hansi Flick a lot of credit where he actually gets a lot of hate. Low key. But yeah, I'm going to have to say Barcelona 8. The more I think about it, it makes more sense. Low key, you could even argue 9, like I said. I don't even know you could really argue 7. Think about it. They got 3 big losses. I was only really thinking about 2. They got 3. They got 3. They got 3. So yeah. And then at number 7, we got Madrid. Now, I do think Madrid, that loss to Liverpool is a pretty big loss. I honestly think that Liverpool loss is low-key worse than that Barcelona loss. I think the difference is, in the Barcelona loss, you have the own goal, you have the red card, and the red card kind of changes everything. They're getting outplayed, and it's just going to be worse. When you think about the Madrid losses, that game was 1-0. There were like, you could argue Barcelona had like maybe. They had a couple chances, but Caicedo was stupid in that game. He was stupid. Like, he was like, there was times where Lamine was actually getting by Cucurella. He would actually make a chance, and then Caicedo would just come in and swoop in and just destroy the play. And Caicedo was ridiculous in that game. And like I said, I do think that there was a lot of things that happened in that game. They couldn't build up. If it wasn't Lamine, they couldn't do anything. They genuinely couldn't do anything. I do think when Rafinha came on, it kind of did make a difference, but it was already 10 men. That doesn't do anything. When it comes to Madrid in that game, they probably had one chance all game. Like, and it was some shocking performances in that game. Shocking. And it wasn't even the fact. The thing with Madrid, they kind of don't even build their team to be like technically crazy. They kind of build their midfield to be like bullies. And for them to get bullied the way they did in that game was kind of crazy. So I really think that game could have been a lot worse. Courtois was ridiculous, man of the match level, even in a loss type. You know what I'm saying? But I do think the thing you got to get Madrid, I do think if we talk about the last month, Barcelona, Atletico have had a better last month overall. But because they've been so consistent to start the year, I do think they're starting to kind of break down. They had a good game today against Bilbao. Barcelona played that same team. I think it was like 4-0. I think today Madrid beat them 3-0. So maybe Bilbao's just not that crazy. You know what I'm saying? Maybe that's just not that crazy. I think Arsenal destroyed them as well early in the year. Maybe that's just not that crazy of a team. And then the goals that goalie is giving up, that dude just may be a little overrated. Because one of the goals that Mbappe scored and one of the goals that Lewandowski scored, I don't even know what to say, bro. That was crazy. Crazy. But I would say Madrid off Mbappe has been ridiculous. Outside of Mbappe, it's really where the conversation started happening. I think there's an easy fix to Madrid. And when it comes to Barcelona and Atletico, it's a lot of things you got to fix. When it comes to Madrid, just put Mbappe on the left. Sell Vini Rodrigo. Maybe you have Rodrigo as the depth on the squad depth, which don't hurt because you are Madrid. Get a striker. Get a real striker, bro. You're chilling, brother. You're going to be winning Champions Leagues again. You're Madrid. You know what I'm saying? But I do think there's some stuff in the midfield. Maybe they could have a little bit more technical excellence, a little bit more passing ability, a little bit more chance creators and stuff like that. That's a little bit more balanced. Like, they got Arda Güler, who's not really a midfielder. He can play the 10, but like, he kind of hurts their defense in that midfield, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know how to really explain it, but like, they have a lot of issues in terms of the balance of their midfield. They don't really have a balanced midfield. And then defensively, their back line, I think their best right back this year has been Valverde, where Trent, I feel like he's good, but he doesn't really fit their team because he wants to keep crossing into the box. But they don't really have like a person that sits in the box type player. Like, that's not Mbappe. He wants to sit deep. Vini's not that type of player. Gonzalo Garcia, they may not even have to buy a striker. He was really good in the Club World Cup. That is the Club World Cup, I guess. At this point, I don't know. But I don't know. I think that there's an easy fix to this team. I think that one fix could change a lot of stuff and make a lot of the issues not be as big of issues anymore, personally. I think their main issue right now is that they just don't have nobody sitting in the box. And a lot of this is really just Mbappe. Vini is having another not that great season. He had a solid start, but the inconsistency and the shakiness game to game is really weird. Like they destroyed a team today, and Vini was bad again. So I don't know, bro. I really don't know what to really go about there. And I will say Machester, whatever his name is, he wasn't that good to start the year. But he got injured, and you can see where defensively their press is not good either from attacks. Because you got Vini and Mbappe that don't want to press. Machester was like one of the only like actual attackers that would press. And then you have Arda Güler in the midfield, and like it's just all combining into each other at the same time. But I do think they have a couple good pickups. Carreras has been good for them. Dean has been low-key a lot more shaky than I really expected, I won't lie. But Militao being healthier this year has actually been a big deal for them. And then, like I said, at right back, they have the whole Trent, Carvajal, Valverde situation where Valverde don't really fit in the midfield no more because they got strictly role midfield like things now, and that don't really fit Bellingham and Valverde in my opinion. I think allowing those to have a little bit more individual freedom is kind of what makes those guys as good as they are in the midfield. If they kind of have to just play a role, they're not going to be as good, if that makes sense. So, I do think Madrid, though, they got, you know what I'm saying, the Atletico loss. Like, when they lose, though, bro, it's bad. Like, it's a dominant performance. They got, bro, and like I said earlier when I was talking about Atletico, Madrid got one big game in the last 2 years, if we're being real. Like, they got Man City last year. Man City was out of form. They beat Barcelona this year. Barcelona at that point, you could argue, was out of form and injured. So, it's a double whammy. You could say the same thing about City as well. Last year, they was injured as well. So, I think I'm seeing a consistent thing here. I don't think that they're too much. I don't think that there's this a huge gap between these three teams, personally, right now. And if Barcelona get healthy, I can see them create distance from these two teams because I think the change that Madrid should make, they're not making. And I think the change that they may make is actually firing the manager, which is crazy to me. But I digress. And then next, you could argue this team could be lower as well. Liverpool. Liverpool is 6. Now, the issue with Liverpool is the PSV game. They're starting to lose games in the Champions League as well. But you beat the best team in La Liga this year so far in terms of consistency. Like, Madrid is probably not the best team right now, but in terms of the consistency throughout the season, which is kind of what this is based off of, they've been the best team overall. They may not be leading, they may not whatever, but right now, you know, Liverpool, though, in the league, they kind of showcase, Liverpool is kind of proof of how tough it is in the Premier League right now. Premier League, you can lose any game. Unless you're playing Wolves, you can lose every game. I was kind of mentioning that in the last when I remade the video after Sunday's games, when I was talking about how Leeds had a great game against City. Leeds goes and beats Chelsea, and it wasn't even like a question. It was a beat. Now, the thing with Chelsea is they kind of trying to treat the Premier League, a couple of these games, kind of like PSG does League One, when you can't really do that. You can't. And you just can't do that. So, I'm not going to be too harsh on Chelsea for that L, but there's some performances in that game that we're going to talk about that people was kind of gassing the players. But Liverpool, I think that it's a clear managerial issue. It's a clear tactics issue. Salah is low-key, it's not even disrespect at this point. He's just overrated. He's a moments player. If he's not having those moments, what the hell is he doing? He doesn't press. And you kind of seen it over the weekend. They don't play him and they win. It's just what it is, bro. It's just what it is. Now, Wirtz, whatever his name is, bro, he gets his first GA, but they take it away because it's an own goal. So, shout out to Wirtz, man. And I ain't gonna lie. The thing about Wirtz is he's getting a lot of hate. He has not been nearly as bad as people act like. It's just he's not getting GA. He's not getting GA. He has not been that. Like, the past 2 months, he's been getting better and better. So, you can't even debate it. If you're watching these Liverpool games, it's not him. You can't even kind of blame him. He's actually been good, especially the last month. He's been getting better and better. So, I think especially in that Madrid game, he was good. And I think the last 2 games, Wirtz was very good. So, all I'm going to say is, man, Izak, I was really high on you, bro. I was really high on you, man. Because if I had to say I have a Premier League team, it'd probably be Newcastle. For you to go over there and do what you're doing right now, bruh. You ain't been hot, gang. You losing possession. Like, we in December, bro. You still not match. Like, we still saying you're not match fit. Like, I don't know, bro. I don't know, man. It's not looking great for you right now. And then Ekitike now is kind of getting shaky. Them sitting him for this long is low-key making him a little not that good either. Like, it's all going bad. Like, Van Dijk actually had a ridiculously good start to the season with really all bad stuff around him. Midfield, Conte been bad, and both fullbacks. Now Van Dijk is joining the party. Now, I'm going to keep it a bean. It's kind of harsh on Van Dijk to expect him to be this level with what is going on around him at this age. I'm going to keep it a bean. If he was in a better situation, Van Dijk would still be Van Dijk. It's just the situation is so bad. That's why I've always kind of said I don't really see, even last year when people was saying Salah had a better, he wasn't better than Van Dijk in my opinion. It's just that Salah was so important in their attack and he was getting all the GA that it was like people was giving that to him. But Van Dijk, in my opinion, was still better last year. And you kind of seeing it now. Like, if the team is looking bad, Van Dijk is still putting out better performances than Salah even when he's having bad. It's just what it is. But I do think 6 is a fair slot because of how tough Premier League. You got to gauge these losses with a grain of salt. You got to be harsh on them because they went crazy in the transfer window. Like, especially when you think about Barcelona. Barcelona can't even remotely try to spend nowhere near. Like, they have one purchase, Don Garcia, and they got a loan of Rashford. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't even really try to compare the two. But Liverpool, they got some big wins still under their belt. You got to think about the Arsenal win. You got to think about the Madrid win. Those are wins that teams like Madrid don't have. Barcelona don't have. None of the teams under them really have. They even beat Aston Villa. So, like, you got to give Liverpool the credit for the games that they have won, regardless of how bad it's been lately. And then next, we got at 5, before we get too deep into the top 5, starting at the top 5, Manchester City. Now, Manchester City, man, Manchester City is a very tough team because they have clear, obvious flaws, a high dependence on Haaland. Now, I think Madrid have a similar issue where they have a high dependence on Mbappe to score the goals. But Manchester City, it's a little different, man. It's like Pep is now not only noticed that it's such a dependence on him that Pep Guardiola has kind of abandoned possession football. He is now trying to play a counter-attacking football, not just to improve, to make it easier for Haaland, because Haaland is more so a counter-attacking striker. That's why it always was like these questions about if he was going to ever be that good with these guys. But the crazy thing is Haaland is very improved in a lot of assets outside of goal scoring, like build-up play, creating chances for other guys. He's been a lot better this year. He has. And then when you think about the fact that defensively they have so many issues, he has to make the team more of a defensive team because of that as well. And then Donnarumma. Now, I think their two best players have been Donnarumma and Haaland at this point. I don't even think it's too debatable. Like, this team will be in a much worse situation. Foden, I know a lot of people may want to mention him because he's starting to get goals lately, but Foden did not have a good start to the year at all. He's been very inconsistent, but he's starting to get it going. So you got to give Foden his credit. Cherokee, I don't know how to really feel about him, but you can see the talent, but he kind of have consistency issues. Rangers, I actually think, is the guy, but he just doesn't work if Rodri's not playing. Like, it just doesn't. So I kind of really can't gauge him. He's not a DM. He's more like an 8, but even then he's more of like an attacking 8. So it's just a lot of profiles that's not really suited to how City needs to play this year. Like, they got a lot of attacking guys, but they don't really have as many defensive guys. And even their fullbacks aren't even fullbacks. They're both midfielders. Like, their center backs this year have been very bad. Like, Guardiola has been their only, like, redeeming quality at center back. Ruben Diaz, people was gassing him because they was getting clean sheets. He's not been good. Like, City is literally the only real title chance that anybody outside the Premier League got outside of Arsenal right now. Like, you can mention Aston Villa, but what they've done, is it going to last? Probably not. Probably not, if we being real. So, City, that's the only shot that y'all really got if y'all really Arsenal haters. I'm going to keep it a bean. But all in all, I still got City at 5. I actually want to see, that's a clash right there, because if you really think about it, City this year in big games, they tied with Arsenal. That was a very good game. Liverpool, they destroyed. But Liverpool, I don't know how much to really gauge that. They've lost to every other team besides Arsenal. Like, they lost to United. They lost to, did they tie with Spurs? Oh, City also lost to Spurs. Nah, I don't know, bro. City is a tough one. City is a tough one. City is a tough one. But that Madrid game is going to be huge. That's going to be huge. That's going to be a huge gauge for both teams. All right, next we're getting into more of the top 5 coming in at number 4. This was very tough because this league is just a lot tougher than the next team, and the next team is a lot more injured. Oh man, hey though, that other team is dropping games in a way weaker league, and this is a ranking based off right now. If we're basing it off Barcelona when they're fully healthy, they would probably be higher. So we gotta do it. I gotta be real. Even with the loss today, I gotta be real. I gotta say PSG is 4. I think PSG, they really got one big win under their belt this year is Barcelona. Outside of that, they have not been that great. They've dealt with injuries. They've tried to rest guys in the league. They've tried to play guys in the league. It's not been anything consistent within the league. League 1 has actually been pretty underratedly very competitive this year, but it's not like the standard is that much better. I think it is an improved league this year because you got Monaco that improved, Martial that improved. Lyon has improved. You could argue Lyon regressed as well because they did lose Cherokee, but for the most part, you could argue they improved. PSG has regressed. They have. Playing all those games last year, didn't play in Club World Cup, you can kind of understand it. But they're starting to drop games in the league when they even playing people. Like, you can't even say they're not playing people. So, and then that Spurs game, like, people gonna say they dominated. There was not domination. At half, Spurs was winning. Second half, you know what I'm saying, PSG take over because Spurs are just not good. But it's a shocking performance, honestly. Like, Vitinha was ridiculous in that game. But overall, the team didn't play that well. And defensively, you're starting to see the cracks. Is Hakimi even going to come back this year, bro, with the injury that he got in that Bayern game? And then you even got a game like the Bayern game where they got dominated, which is, you could argue Bayern is the best team in the world as well. But I'm going to say 4. I'm not going to gauge the Barcelona game too much because both teams was crazy injured. I do think that was a great win, especially with how they pulled it off at the end, even though I think that was debatably offsides, even though I do think Hakimi played him on, but he might still have been offsides. I'm keeping it being. But that was a very close game. I think second half PSG was better. I think Barcelona was slightly better in the first, personally. There was a lot of things that happened in that game, low-key thinking about the play where Nuno gets... Now, I got to give Nuno a lot of credit, though. I love Nuno. I had Nuno very high in the Ballon d'Or rankings in terms of this past year because you think about what he did to the best wingers in the world this past year. Like, when he played Cole Palmer, he didn't really go against Cole Palmer. That was more so Gusto, and he still didn't have a great game. Olise, he had a really good game against, but I don't think he locked Olise. You could say the second time he played Olise did nothing. I won't lie, he did nothing. Saka, he locked. Salah, he locked. And Lamine, in Nations League, low-key, I mentioned the Cucurella game. I think Cucurella probably had the best one-on-one game, but Nations League, he was fantastic. But that wasn't one-on-one either. But he was fantastic. That was probably the most I ever seen Lamine actually be locked. Like, it was at a point in time where Spain didn't even want to give Lamine the ball. The Nations League game was actually pretty bad. The PSG Barcelona game first half, bro, he was cooking Nuno. I ain't gonna lie. And he was beating a one-on-one. He was drawing fouls. He even got a yellow on him. And then in the second half, he low-key should have got a second yellow. For whatever reason, didn't get a second yellow, which made no sense. But with him not getting that, for him to go and play winger and do what he did for that time until he goes back to I think they went to a 5-back at a certain point, and they had like a back 3. When he was playing at winger, bro, he was the best winger on the field at a certain point. It was kind of crazy. It was actually kind of crazy, bro. Nuno is stupid, bro. Nuno is genuinely stupid. And then Hakimi on the other side, bro. They literally just said we're not playing in the midfield, which you got to give a lot of credit to Pedri as well in that because they didn't want to play in the midfield at all. Vitinha was shocking in that game. So I think that the fullbacks were the difference in the game, personally. But I think PSG is very good. I think if everybody's healthy, this is arguably the best team in the world. They're just not healthy. So you got to be real. I go 4. Then we got at 3. Big game merchants themselves, Chelsea. At this point, Chelsea is in big games, you can expect them to show up. The only big game that they really show up in was at Bayern. But I'm going to be real, the Bayern game, if you remember, Chelsea at that point was not in good form at all. Like, they were losing very questionable games at that time. Palmer was very good in this game, though. You got to think about all the stuff that's happening right now. Palmer I think he came back today. He didn't play in the Arsenal game. He didn't play in the Barca game. He didn't play in the Liverpool game. He didn't play in a lot of these big games that they've already won this season. So you gotta give Chelsea a lot of credit, bro. Their manager is very, 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 very tactically ready for all these games. He makes huge moves. He does a lot of things. Cucurella was very good in that Barcelona game. He was very good in that. By the way, the Barcelona game, he locked up Saka. Saka, the only reason he even gets the goal is because in the way that they were playing, bro, I was seeing it at one point. He came all the way to like the fullback to come get the ball. He was pressing him the full length of the pitch. Once they got 10 men, that's when it kind of fell apart. So shout out to Caicedo for trolling that low key. They were clearly thoroughly outplaying them. And then for them to go and still have 10 men in the second half to get the lead, and then Arsenal be trying to fight back is crazy. Now, the thing is, the only reason why they actually do give up that goal is because they had to give them more space because it was 10 men. And anybody that's arguing otherwise is just kind of delusional. I'm going to keep it a bean. But, and also, Saka just not had a great season. But you got to give Saka his credit. With England, he's very good at getting those crosses in, and it just working. It just works. Declan Rice in that game was bad, but I think Declan Rice, outside of Pedri, you could argue he's been the best midfielder in the world this year. Like, there's just certain things that Pedri does that I don't really see how you can even have convos with Pedri sometimes, especially when you see a performance like what he had against Atletico. But Declan Rice has been really good. I think Declan Rice and Caicedo convos is very understandable, but after a game like what he did against Chelsea, where he was too amped up, and he just goes and gets a red card, which was, I don't know if it's a clear red card, but it's an understandable red card. I'm not even going to debate it. But if he doesn't get a red, that could have been a great game. But I ain't gonna lie, Declan Rice, even when he went out, it wasn't good. And the thing is, like I said with Chelsea when they played Barca, Arsenal in the first had no build up. And I'm gonna say this, bro. Everybody talks about Arsenal's defense, but Chelsea got probably the toughest press to break down right now. Like, we seen PSG struggle with it. We seen Barcelona, albeit they really only had Lamine to really create in that game, because you had De Jong out there with Eric Garcia and Firmino. And literally, if you watch that game, I don't know what the hell Eric Garcia and Firmino was doing. They literally were just not giving not Firmino, what is his bro name? De Jong even an option to pass to. Like, De Jong was having to pick up the ball, take extra dribbles for no reason. That was a lot on him, taking extra dribbles sometimes, but if he kept doing backwards passes with that press, it was going to be a mistake regardless. So, it was a lot of bad midfield play in that game for Barcelona. If Pedri plays, that's a kind of different situation, because that two together is just a different conversation. But you can say they probably would. I don't think the way that the Chelsea press, it would have worked to do what PSG did. PSG didn't press the same level. What PSG did in that game, they just pretty much gave a lot of attention to Pedri and a lot of attention to Lamine, and they didn't care what the other attackers really pretty much did in that game. Now, Dani Olmo plays in that game. If Firmino plays in that game, you allow him to have space, maybe that's different. Rafinha came on in that game with a red card, albeit that may be different. So I don't know. That's where it does get a little weird, but I do think that press that Chelsea got to break down is really tough. They were, like I said, they probably went one-on-one with Lamine the most. They still double teamed. Because of Lamine, you kind of have to do that sometimes. And there was times that he did beat him, but the thing is, it wasn't really a full double team. It would be help, and there would be always somebody there. And then when he had help there, the person, when he did make a good pass, the person to break it up would be Caicedo. Now, the thing is, Barcelona had a clear-cut chance that just got completely trolled by Ferran Torres, which has happened so many times in Lamine's career at this point. But you got to give Chelsea their credit right now, man. That press that they have to break down is a huge issue. And that's why in big games they're good. But when it comes to having to break down a low block, like today against Leeds, they are not that great, especially if Palmer's not playing. Now, they do have a João Pedro issue in terms of where they want to play him. I just don't think the lap has been good at all. Their wingers are just not good. I think Esteval is probably their best winger, but that's not saying much. I think Esteval, the conversation that y'all put him in is just not really fair at all. Like, the Arsenal game was bad. If you watch the Barcelona game, he wasn't good. I wouldn't say he's bad, but the goal he got, that one sequence of play was, bro, that was magical. That was ridiculous. But outside of that, bro, he was pretty wasteful. He had some good set pieces, I guess. But for the most part, he was kind of wasteful. In Arsenal, he was genuinely wasteful. That was bad. That was a genuine bad performance. Today against Leeds, he could have had a red card. I just don't really, like, it's just, I don't get why people keep doing this with the young kids. Now, we're going to talk about another team next. I don't think the Lamine comparisons is fair, but he's a guy that, if you watch them, he puts out consistent performances. Esteval, what I would say, if you want to compare him to Lamine, finishing to finishing, and especially consistency-wise. Now, we talking about the magical goals. Lamine, that's pretty much all he makes is magical goals for whatever reason. The easy shit, he just misses. I don't even know if you can say that after the Arsenal game, to be honest, because he was missing some crazy chances as well. But from what I've seen when I've watched Chelsea, he's not too wasteful with his chances. But that is kind of 3 games now he's kind of been wasteful. So I don't know. That's a tough one. But I actually do like Esteval. I don't even think just the Lamine shouts is crazy. Like, even the best Brazilians, his Neymar shouts is kind of crazy. Like, Vini, no matter how you feel about him the last 2 years, Vini is bro. And I ain't gonna lie, early on, was Vini as good as this? Maybe not, but I think playing for Chelsea and playing for Madrid are 2 different things. I think that's another thing. And you gotta think about the age he was at contributing to Champions League teams. So I think that's also another aspect you gotta put in there. But I do think Chelsea got somebody with him. Like, they got something with him. Now, I have seen some crazy things about the fact that he's a huge Barcelona fan, so I wouldn't get my hopes up too high. Because if he leaves, that could be low-key. If Esteval leaves with how much the Chelsea fans love him, bro, I ain't gonna lie. That may be a worse reaction to what Liverpool gave Trent. That would actually be crazy. But, yeah, Chelsea at 3. Then we got at 2, Bayern. Bayern, you could argue, is 1 because Luis Diaz didn't play, but he didn't play deservedly, so that was a clear red card. So you can't really blame anything but him. And also, another thing with Chelsea losing the lead, Caicedo has a red card, so he's suspended. So he's not going to be able to play a couple games. I actually seen some fans saying like they had an easy stretch of games. I'm telling y'all, bro, the Premier League, there's no such thing as an easy stretch of games if you're not playing Wolves. Wolves is like the clear cut, and they even barely beat Wolves. So they just have a struggle against them low blocks. But if it's a good team that want to play possession, good luck. You're gonna have to come strapped. Now Bayern, they destroyed them. On the other hand, this is the only team that passed the Chelsea test this year. Nobody else that's a big team has passed the Chelsea test. Liverpool has not passed it. PSG has not passed it. Arsenal didn't pass it. Barca didn't pass it. No big team really passed it. But Bayern passed it. Flying colors. Flying colors. Bayern has been the best team overall the whole season. The issue is they play in Bundesliga. How competitive is Bundesliga? They still don't have a loss. They broke a record for the most consecutive wins, either ever or to start a season. I know it's the start of season, but it also might be ever. But Kane, to start the season at crazy form, he's coming down. But I ain't gonna lie, Mbappe was starting to come down. He's starting to tee back up. He had like 4 goals. Then he comes and gets a brace. But I won't lie, there was games at ties. Mbappe wasn't crazy, but today, you know, they had a big game. Goes with a brace and an assist, so you gotta give him credit. And he's a GA guy, and he's also very good. You know, it's Mbappe. But Kane, you can make some shouts that he's not even the best player on the team. Olise has been very good. I think that dynamic together fits really well. But the thing is, like I'm saying with PSG, like I'm saying with Barca, Bayern got some guys, bro, that can come back and make this really ignorant, man. Like, Gnabry's having a good season, but hey, Luis Diaz on the left. I do think, by the way, in that game against Arsenal, Luis Diaz would have been huge because he's like their Rafinha, where he's a press monster off the ball. He's amazing. You know what I'm saying? I think that's a big factor in Arsenal and how easy it was for them to counter. And I kind of mentioned this earlier in the year when I was talking about Rashford. Yeah, Rashford's getting GA, but bro, off the ball, he's awful. Press, he's awful. And you kind of even seen it at the end against Atletico. Like, he had a good play on the corner, but his off the ball work defensively is not good. But when he's on the ball, you can see it. He's good. He's very technically sound. He's a Barcelona level player when he gets to own the ball. He just doesn't like he don't even like making runs. Like, when we're in attack. And you can see that's a big difference between him and even Ferran Torres, where Ferran Torres gets all those chances because of the fact that he makes runs. But yeah, I would say though, when it comes to Bayern, hey, Carl is nice, man. I ain't gonna lie. Now the thing with Esteval, I think he kind of overrated because he don't have a physical traits, but he also just not that great of a dribbler. Like, I think that passing he's okay, but finishing is low-key his best trait. He's low-key, he reminds me not of Dembele, but like he's genuinely 2-footed. Like, I think the finish that he had against Barcelona was with his weak foot, and it was a rocket, monster shot, crazy play. But Carl is like an actual, like he got real potential, bro. Like, I think Esteban got potential, but I think Carl got a lot, bro. And you could play him in a lot of positions too. So I think Carl, bro, Carl is low-key kind of scary when you think about Barcelona, or not Barcelona, Bayern. I just don't know where he slots. Does he play the 10 and they just get Luis Diaz out of here? Maybe Musiala moves to the striker. Olise goes to the cam, and then you put Carl over there on the right. I don't know, bro. I really don't know. Maybe even Musiala goes to the left, Olise in the 10, and Carl goes to the right. I don't know what they do. Maybe Carl goes to the 10, Olise stays on the right, Musiala goes to the left. I don't know. I genuinely don't know, but Carl is really good. I actually like Carl a lot. I can't lie. I actually like Carl. What he's doing over there is kind of scary. Because that team's nice. That team's nice. I didn't even mention Davies, but Davies the past couple years, he's just injured. So I don't want to go too crazy on him. You know what I'm saying? But Bayern, they've had the best attack this year. Defensively, they've been a little, you know what I'm saying? They've been good for what they've played, but you can see in that Arsenal game where they can be shaky. I do think that game was a little bit overblown, what it was, because it was a lot closer than what it seemed. Nor had a really crazy game. Apparently, though, that touch wasn't on purpose. If that touch was on purpose, hey, bro, hats off to you. But if it wasn't, wow. But the Upamecano shocking performance. Kimmich actually had a really good performance. I know people be hating on Kimmich, but Kimmich is actually one of the more underrated midfielders as well. So I actually like Bayern. I do think they have a fullback problem in terms of both sides. I think they can improve both ways. But Bayern, I would say 2. And then last but not least, best squad depth team in the world, playing in the best league in the world, but they're playing in the best league in the world, and it's not a competitive league right now. It's literally part 2 of last year, if not even worse, where the league damn near is already over, bro. Arsenal is just that dominant right now. What Arteta be having people talking about he needs to get fired if he doesn't do this, that, and the third. They have a good team every year. Last year they got trolled by injuries. They're still injured a lot this year. You can make all these excuses about them injury-wise this year, but they just have the squad depth. They have a very well-built squad. They're using their money the right way. They have a good first unit. Now, the thing is, I would say, they don't really have a game changer. I think Bayern has a game changer. Chelsea has a game changer. PSG has a game changer. City, Liverpool. Do Liverpool have a game changer? It really depends on Salah. Salah has not been a game changer this year. Usually he's a game changer. They think Wirtz is a game changer. They think Izak is a game changer. So I guess you can say them. Madrid obviously have one. Barcelona obviously have one. Atletico, it depends on how you feel about Julian Alvarez. Aston Villa low-key might have one as well with Morgan Rogers. But in Morgan Rogers one, does that mean Saka and Eze is one? It really is debatable on those three in general, to me. And people was trying to debate with me last year on Saka and Elise. Elise is just better. Like, Elise is just better. I'm sorry. He is, to me. But I do think Saka is very good. I think Eze is very inconsistent. He's been inconsistent all year, and you kind of seen that in that Chelsea game. He was very shocking. He was not good at all. The thing is, though, Arsenal, they don't have to win these big games. Their team is built to win, beat every team that they're better than. When it comes to teams that's around their level, is when it gets shaky, and they're starting to beat those teams too. Like, they beat Bayern. You could have argued they should have lost to City, but they tied with them. They tied with Chelsea, which you could argue they should have lost to them. If they keep winning these games like that, man, like, I think Arsenal, if they played Barcelona, they would beat Barcelona. Like, regardless of who's healthy, who's not. It's just they're built to beat a team like Barcelona. Like, especially if they play the same way that they played against Bayern, especially with the high line that Barcelona want to play, regardless of how good Joan Garcia is, Arsenal will probably beat them. The issue is, though, with Arsenal, I don't really trust their striker, Gyokeres. I don't trust him at all. But I do think he does give them space to play behind him, like guys like Eze, guys like Saka, guys like Declan Rice. Even like the left wing. The left wing position is actually extremely bad, but a lot of teams have that similar situation where the left wing is kind of bad. Like Chelsea has a similar situation. Some of these teams don't have that situation. But Arsenal, the thing is, defensively, they're ridiculous. I think their goalkeeper is very overrated, though. I ain't gonna lie. That goal that he gave up against Chelsea, low key. Neuer saving that. I ain't gonna lie. I didn't mention this with PSG. The difference between PSG last year and this year is not just injuries, by the way. It's the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper that the PSG have is not good, in my opinion. Donnarumma, on the other hand, is arguably the best in the world. I think that's a big deal. So I think PSG don't have a better goalkeeper. City has a better goalkeeper with Donnarumma. I know people be trying to have those debates. I don't agree. I think the reason why Arsenal don't give up as many goals is because Arsenal has a better defense. Like, you can't gas Timber as being the best right back. and then saying you have the best two center back, especially the best center back combo, and then gas Lewis Skelly, who's very overrated as a left back, but he's actually Lewis Skelly is actually very good as a midfielder. On the other hand, and against Bayern, Lewis Skelly was getting cooked. Was that Carl going? That was Carl going against him. I just realized that was Carl going against him. He was cooking, bro. So you gotta give him that. But yeah, that's it. That's the tier list. That's the top 10. I think Arsenal, all in all, there is some things that can be taken apart. But the thing is, even if people get injured, they have the depth. And again, the game against Chelsea, Gabriel and Saliba didn't play. So if those two play, maybe it's different. I don't really think it is, because I don't think the defense was the issue. I think they had no build-up. They couldn't hold possession, which is what Arsenal wants to do. So if they can't do that, it kind of just is what it is at that point. So yeah, that's the video. Y'all do want more, make sure to like I said, this is my 3rd time doing it. Hopefully I don't have to remake this anymore. Hopefully I can just go ahead and get this out. Y'all want more, like the video, subscribe, all that good stuff out the way. Without further ado, man, it's your boy Fitz. I'm out of here.
Tell them to bring me my money. Yeah!